Dr. Arlen Hayes sat hunched over the lab bench, the glow of his computer screen illuminating his tired face. The lab was his sanctuary, a place where science, mysticism, and philosophy blurred together, coalescing into something greater than any one discipline could explain. He stared at the graph on the screen, brainwave activity captured during their latest experiment, the patterns so complex, so seemingly random, that they made his heart race. But it wasn't the complexity of the data that intrigued him. It was the eerie resemblance to concepts described in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, where the soul's journey after death was said to be one of transformation, dispersing through realms until merging with the greater cosmos. He had been reading about it for months, and lately, the lines between the ancient text, Carl Jung's ideas of the collective unconscious, and quantum physics seemed to converge in ways he hadn't expected. Arlen, Dr. Lena Voss's voice broke through his thoughts. She stood beside him, her eyes fixed on the screen. Look at this. You see it, don't you? It's almost like the brainwaves are spreading out, dispersing, like energy. He nodded, unable to shake the thought that this pattern mirrored not just physical phenomena, but something deeper, a mystical return to a greater whole. Entropy, he murmured. The second law of thermodynamics. The brain's energy is dispersing, much like a system moving toward equilibrium. But as Lena observed, it wasn't just entropy at play, it was interconnectedness. The team had long theorized that consciousness didn't just vanish upon death. It transformed, merged with a greater universal energy, just as quantum physics suggested that particles, once separate, could be linked, no matter how far apart they were. The principles of quantum entanglement seemed to suggest that at the most fundamental level, everything was connected, whether visible or not. Across the room, Dr. Simon Locke, the physicist of the group, was deep in thought. He adjusted his glasses and turned to face the others. What if this isn't just a metaphor? What if the soul's transition, the dispersal of energy, is more than spiritual language? What if it's a quantum process, a movement of consciousness across an interconnected network, just like the quantum field? The thought struck Hayes like a bolt of lightning. Quantum physics had always seemed too abstract to reconcile with human experience, too detached from the deeply personal journey of consciousness. But here it was, woven seamlessly into the fabric of what they were exploring: entropy, the collective unconscious, and the afterlife as a return to the cosmos. Lena joined the conversation. In Jungian terms, the self is this vast, interconnected force, a union of the conscious and unconscious, a return to wholeness. Perhaps what we're seeing here is the brain attempting to return to that state, consciousness breaking free from the ego, reuniting with a greater, collective source. It's like the self is the universal field, pulling us back into the whole, just as quantum particles are entangled across space. The team's experiments were pushing boundaries, running simulations of near-death experiences, inducing brain activity to the brink of collapse to observe the transitions of consciousness. It was dangerous, yes, but they felt that what they were uncovering had the potential to change everything. During one of their final trials, Simon volunteered again, willing to undergo the most extreme test. As his body temperature dropped, his heart rate slowed, the brain's electrical activity began to shift. And then, something extraordinary occurred. A pattern emerged that could only be described as an entangled web. A cosmic connection not only between his brain and his own body, but with the team, with the universe itself. It was as if consciousness had expanded beyond Simon, connecting to everyone in the room and beyond, resonating with something greater. "Do you see this?" Simon gasped as he regained full consciousness. "It's like I was there, but I wasn't. I wasn't just me. There was a collective presence, a connectedness." Hayes could barely breathe. The data was extraordinary. Simon had experienced something that defied the traditional boundaries of individuality. It was as if his consciousness had merged with the greater quantum field, much like particles entangled across space and time. "That's it," Hayes whispered, more to himself than anyone else. "It's all connected. The soul, the psyche, the energy, it's all part of the same cosmic whole. Like the interconnectedness of quantum particles, where everything is in relation to everything else, so too is consciousness linked to the universe." They weren't just theorizing anymore. They were on the edge of a profound discovery. The interconnectedness described in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, the concept of the self in Jungian psychology, and the principles of quantum physics were not just philosophical ideas. They were real, scientifically observable phenomena. The brain, when pushed to its limits, seemed to enter a state of total interconnection, like a system of energy returning to the source, much like how thermodynamics describes the transition of energy into a state of equilibrium. The implications were far-reaching. If the mind and consciousness were indeed part of a larger universal fabric, as quantum physics suggested, then the boundaries of life and death, of the individual and the collective, might be more porous than anyone had imagined. The soul, the self, and the quantum field could all be seen as reflections of the same universal principle: interconnectedness. After weeks of painstaking analysis, the team reached a crucial conclusion. The laws of thermodynamics, while seemingly only applicable to the physical world, could be used as metaphors for the journey of the soul. Just as energy spreads out and becomes more diffuse, so too did consciousness merge with the universe, returning to the cosmic source. And like quantum entanglement, where particles once separated can remain connected no matter the distance, the mind, soul, and universe were fundamentally linked, transcending the barriers of time and space. But the team faced a dilemma. The university would never accept this work. Too unconventional, too speculative. They had crossed lines that weren't meant to be crossed. But the data was irrefutable. The experiments had opened doors to a deeper understanding of the nature of consciousness, life, and death. They couldn't abandon it. As the team walked away from the lab one final time, leaving behind their experiments and their dreams of recognition, Hayes couldn't shake the feeling that they had done something important. Maybe the world wasn't ready for their discoveries yet, but someone, somewhere, would pick up these threads in the future. Someone who would understand the profound interconnectedness between Jungian psychology, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, thermodynamics, and quantum physics. In the quiet of the lab, a thought lingered. The seeds of understanding had been scattered, and perhaps, in time, they would grow into something that would change the way humanity understood its place in the universe. If you like this story, please like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit the bell for upcoming videos. Until then, let your imagination run wild. We'll get there.